kia ora, everybody. It's exciting for me for the first time in about 6 or 7 months to say kia ora and hopefully have an audience that knows what that means. So I've been on the Gold Coast here for about 6 months. Look, I'll go to my presentation and then I'll just introduce myself. And why is that not working? Because all the little buttons are up the top, Shane, and now I can't see my presentation. How do I move that? And how do I move that out of the way?
It looks good. I can see Mathsweek.
There we go. Okay, I've got it to the
Yep.
right. There we go. Beautiful. Okay, we're underway. Sorry, team. Yes, so I'm here to talk about Mathsweek 2023, and just thought I'd start with the traditional introduction. So, tēnā koutou katoa, ko ara ki toko moka, ko makawhio toko awa, ko katahu toko iwi, ko kati mahaki toko iwi, toko hapu, sorry. Ko te tōraka waka amaui tōku marae, ko Lyndon tōku mātua, ko Patricia tōku whaia, no Ototahi ahau, ko Shane Barr tōka ikukoa, no reira, tēnā koutou katoa. Oh, that was a bit rusty. Sorry, team. Out of practice. If you have a look, there are my beautiful daughters. That photo is a little old now. They are currently, but I love that photo. I really do. Takes me back. They are, this is Laura. She turned 30 last year. Oh my God, I'm getting old. And that is, sorry, that's Tegan. And there's Laura. She's a couple of years younger. They are both living in Auckland at the moment and happily doing their own thing. That, of course, is the Avon River. That I did mention the makawhio. That is, I'm Ngāi Tahu, and the makawhio is the river top left of the South Island. However, I feel like I got two. That's kind of related to the marae and where the hapu comes from. But I'm very much a Christchurch boy. Grew up there, went to Christchurch. Where did I go? Branston Intermediate, closed now. South Hornby Primary. And if any of you know Hornby, you'll know it's pretty rough and ready at times. And then, I actually went to Christchurch Boys High. And there's the marae that I talked about on the west coast. This is a photo of, we went on a helicopter trip to the glaciers, which with my wife, and that's Mount Cook, buried in, as traditional, in the cloud. And if you look on the right, okay, my current school that I'm on leave of absence from is Common Intermediate, and that flash-looking building down below it that I still sometimes look at, think, how did I end up here? Is A.B. Patterson. It's their main building. It's a private school on the Gold Coast, and I'm currently there, and I'll be there for another year, I think next year as well, before I've got a bit of a decision to make. Right, so a little bit about me. On to Mathsweek. So I've been involved in the writing committee for about 4 years now, and Mathsweek was really set up by some mathematicians that some of you will probably know quite well. Alan Paris and then Bill Elwood, both legends of the maths community in New Zealand. So it starts next week, next Monday, and it's had a bit of a refresh. If any of you were listening to my presentation last year on this, then I've tried to put the changes up front. So about halfway through, I'll just be revisiting each of the activities and explaining those. So if that's not new to you and you're all over that, then you're quite welcome to tune out at that point, or you can still hang around, you never know. So it runs for the whole week. It started in 1998 and it is supported by the Ministry of Education. There's a team of writers. So if I click on this, then you can see the writers and tell you a little bit about them. So Gillian Frankham is an editor, and those of you involved in NZANT will know Gillian really well. She's the president and been around teaching maths and latterly at the University of Auckland in their education faculty. Tony Davidson, also well known for his work on the NZQA and as an examiner, both in secondary and tertiary. I learned some things from these bios. I didn't realise that he'd hailed from Canterbury, but certainly lives in Auckland at the moment. Pip Arnold, that Anne mentioned, is most of you involved in Auckland will know Pip, I would sure think. Well known for that. Recently published a book on statistical investigations. Hopefully some of you bought. And yeah, she presents actually internationally at certainly education events with a focus on statistics. Mandy's well known. She works at Buckland Speech, year 7 and 8, and focuses on working with their gifted and talented, although also works, I believe, recently at a primary school maths extension. I can't remember the school. There's me, but I've told you all about me, so let's get going. And Kim Madden. Now, Kim was involved in the refresh of the maths curriculum. So she lent her understanding to the early primary, like level 1, 2, 3 parts. And then just to revisit for those of you that knew them, Alan Paris that I met, he was heavily involved in anything mathematical really, and was very much the driving force at the beginning of Mathsweek. And then Bill took over. So to give you some idea of just how good Alan and Bill were with what they did, it's taken 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of us to generate the same content that these individuals wrote, them almost all of it themselves. And then when Bill was into his retirement and he wanted to pass Mathsweek on, I was invited, and as we all were, to give it a go. We looked at the work and we're like, oh my God, how did he possibly do this himself? He had a little bit of help, of course, but it was essentially one man's labour of love for the both of them. So since then, we've picked it up and run with it in the ministry based on the number of eyeballs that go on the website. Are pretty happy with the funding. I'll jump back to the presentation, and you can see that more than 250,000 students and their teachers register for Mathsweek through New Zealand. It is written for students between years 1 to 11. So if they're 12 or 13, year 12 or 13, it's not really aimed at them. No reason they can't give it a go, of course. And it is free. It's available online. If you're a teacher in New Zealand, then you can sign up to the website and you'll get access to the resources. And the goal, of course, is just to write maths, to make it fun, to make it interesting, to give you something perhaps a little bit different to do with your class for a week. So just to make it, I guess, put a bit of passion into it and let the kids know that it's not always just about following that same routine day in, day out, and that maths can be exciting. You know, we're passionate about maths, but sometimes we're not as good at communicating that to our kids. So this gives you just another opportunity to leave your way onto that. So what's new? The website has undergone a refresh. So if you look at the logo on the left, that was actually designed for our logo competition last year, and that was the winner, one of our students that entered that. And every year we seek feedback from the people that use the website, and we actually do look at that pretty carefully. We collate it for themes, and then one of the themes that did come through was that finding the resources wasn't as easy as it should have been, and as a result, we've redesigned pretty much the whole thing. So you'll notice that this year, and we've gone to, if you want to download the resources, just one click, with one click, you can download all of the resources for one section. If you want to, you can drill into it and just download what you want, but it's just one zipped file, and then you can open it on your device and use what you need. Last year we had with the touch screens, Last year we had a competition for the kids. This year we've got a competition for the teachers. Yay! And there's cash. You can win money. Now, all you need to do is suggest a theme. And we don't need a 500 or 1,000 word novel. We've kept it fairly light in terms of the direction that you want to give us. Another part of the feedback that we got was that they felt, some of the teachers felt that the themes had been done already, or that they were a little bit repetitive at times. So we're like, okay then, there's a lot of maths teachers in New Zealand. Let's see what we can come up with. So just give it a go. We're looking at about 200 words for the submission. And like I said, there is a cash prize for the winner, but I think we've got a little bit for second and third as well. So please do give it a go. And don't be surprised if you get chosen. Also, Tony, who is our current writing team leader, would like to step down. So he would like to enjoy his retirement. I did laugh at this. I found this on the internet. I thought it was quite witty. This is an actual real job advert for a maths teacher in India from fairly recently as well. We're not quite as creative in the Mathsweek writing team, but this is what we do need. We need somebody to take over Tony's role. So we'll be advertising for that soon. If you would like a more detailed job description of what it might involve, then you can email admin@nzamp.org.nz. The responsibilities, so you've got to lead the writing team, which actually isn't as hard as it sounds, because we're all lovely people. If you're wondering why didn't any of us put our hand up and go, actually, I will do it, Tony. It's simply that this part down the bottom, this position would suit someone that does not have a full-time position. So if you've got doing something else part-time, this might be ideal for you, because then you can work around the other things that you are doing. If you're working full-time, then it's a pretty hard ask. There's particularly in and around when Mathsweek is just about ready to go. So as well as leading the writing team, we generate the content, the writers, and then we pass that on to the team leader, and there's a final proof there, so you need to be able to do that. You work with the website manager and just update or make changes, let that person know of the changes that we would like to make, and check that happens. You might have to draft some notices for publishing in the Gazette, or emailing out to teachers across New Zealand, to the various schools, just reminding them about the upcoming Mathsweek, just in terms of promotion for that. When it says managing Mathsweek processes, that's nothing particularly onerous. It's just putting together a process for where do we store the files, managing the deadlines, checking that that everything's on track. And the last one, if for any reason Tony liked to write some, and I think it's good for whoever's involved to feel like they've had a little bit of input into Mathsweek as well. It may or may not include generating a small bit of written content, but it wouldn't be as much as the writers. So if you think that might be you, please do email Jenny at admin.nzamp.org.nz, and you'll get a slightly more detailed job description.
Can I just ask, Shane, is it a voluntary position, or is it a paid position? There
is an honorarium. Yep. You will not get rich from the honorarium, I'm sorry to say. To give you some idea, for the ministry did increase the amount of pay, and I know for the writers, maybe you might earn anything like $3,000 or $4,000 for the generating of the content. It depends how much of it that you write from year to year. I think the team leader role would generate a little bit more, but to be perfectly honest, I'm not privy to the actual amount that it involves, but that gives you some idea.
It's just a small stipend for
yes, you can. Please don't go thinking that if you applied for this, that this would be enough to pay your mortgage and do that. It's not that kind of role, particularly since over certainly once Mathsweek finishes all the way through to about, I'd say March of the following year. There's not a lot to do. We've got one meeting, there's a couple of Zoom meetings, and there'll be 1 or 2 files generated by then. It will get a little bit more intense after that. But certainly the best person to talk to about that would be Tony Davidson, if anybody knows him, and I'm sure he'd be happy to respond to emails. All right, thanks, Ian. All right, so pre-week Mathsweek organisation. If you are looking to do Mathsweek with your school, by now you should have registered using the website. And this is, there we go, 1 day and 11 hours to go. So it's pretty simple. If you register, I'll have a slightly different screen because I've already registered, but you click the register button, there it is, register here, and it's all automatic. You'll get the password and login details emailed to you within seconds probably of registering. There's a little bit of information that is collected from there. They just want to know how many students roughly you think would be using it with you, and teachers. So really important that you actually do fill that out, because that's what the ministry uses to collate its information about how many people are using it. Right, once you've registered, you'll get that login and password, and then it's probably wise to familiarise yourself with the facts, frequently asked questions, things like why, if I go there now, aren't there any games? There's when it goes live on Monday, there are some other pages that come up, and that'll include some of the other activities, including the games on the homepage. Although we're trying to not make a big deal about those these days, in the sense that, I don't know if anybody remembers from years ago, there were more. They cost quite a lot to port over to the modern website convention, so they'll work. And there's a plethora of stuff online that you can find for free to use with your class. So we've tried to move away from that. We're really looking at hands-on stuff with Mathsweek if we can. Once you've read the facts, download and print what you need. Probably I would suggest before you use them. There's some of the activities, there's a bit of reading to be done to make sense of them, and preparation for some as well. You may need a little bit of equipment. A lot of them are set up to be displayed on a screen or on a TV, and then or shared digitally with students so that they can work on them on their devices if they've got a touch screen. Alrighty, so that's what it looks like with the downloads. So as you can see, it's pretty clean, and it's as simple as just clicking on that if you want all of them, or you can drill down, drill down using that button into a sub-menu, and then you can select the ones that you need. And once they go live on the Monday, there'll be a few more added to that to do with the other activities. If you're thinking about putting Mathsweek into your school, going school-wide rather than just your classroom, it is really good if you can get the whole school on board and create a little bit of an event. Let's face it, if we don't do it as maths teachers, who else is going to do it? And the answer is probably no one. So it really, that was a big thing for me when I started teaching. I realised, I just thought naturally, it seemed foreign, that the maths would be a fairly respected part of the curriculum, and that it would get, reading, writing, arithmetic, that it would be in fairly good shape. But over the years, I've come to say, actually, no, if I didn't step up, and if those of you in the chat didn't step up and do this kind of promotion, that actually no one else was going to do it. So if you are interested in taking this on board, then it needs to be calendared early in your school. So you really need to have those discussions with senior management towards the end of this year, looking forward into 2024. If you wanted to go school-wide, get it on that calendar early. If you want to use the activities on Mathsweek, thank you. for each daily maths lesson. There is more there than you could possibly get through in one lesson. So you're going to need to pick and choose. I like to use perhaps one set of files as the core of the lesson for one particular activity through the week, and then a starter. Often the daily dollar works really well for that. And then the next year I might swap to a different activity. So you can also download the activities and save them later. So once Mathsweek is finished, then those resources are going to stay up there, and you can still sign in, you can still download them, and you can use them later in the year. So I'd encourage you to do that as well, because like I said, you can't get through all of those. At some point towards the end of the year, access to those resources is shut down, and the website is put into sleep for basically until next year. The reason we don't leave it up all the time is after about 4 or 5 years or so, just to save us some of the time with the writing, then we'll start to reuse for some of those activities. By then, there shouldn't be any students left. There'll be some teachers that recognise it, but there won't be any students left that have already done it, that would realise that the core of it has been done before. We do try, even if it has been done before, we always check to make sure that all of the questions are current, and that if there's anything that was tied to a particular time, that we just rewrite the question to make it sensible for where we are. So these are the current activities that we do. So the daily dollar, it's 5 questions. They're increasing difficulty, each of which are worth about we say $100 a day. It's a point scoring total, so that the students get a dollar value that tells them how they're doing. So it's a variety of topics, and it's a separate worksheet. It works really well to be displayed on a screen, and they can do it by themselves. You could put them in pairs, put them in groups. I'll just got an example here from this year, one of the sheets. So this is the Monday daily dollar, and it starts off with the organisation. So that's a little more detailed version of what I've just gone through. I suggest that you pay close attention to that. Once you've got that, there's some instructions for the students, okay, and you can work your way through that with them. And you might like to have a prize at the end of the week for the highest scoring student. So here's an example. There's a question, and each question is worth a certain amount of points, and the answers, you can see Matthew buys 3 pieces of chicken and a large portion of hot chips. So we try and the theme for today's set of questions is money. Each day will have a different theme, okay? And I think if you look at the levels, they're pretty easy. Watch out, the questions are down below. So if you're going to share the file with students, you might like to take those out just to make it avoid temptation. Up to you really how you organise that. Now, does anyone have any questions about anything that I've said so far? I should have done that earlier, but let's just pause for a second and just see if anybody's got any questions they'd like me to go over in brief.
No questions, but if you do have a questions, pop it in the chat as we go, and we'll do it at the end, Shane. So that's that's
beautiful.
You can unmute yourself and chip in at any time. Feel free, but keep going, Shane. You're doing well.
Right, so that was Daily Dollar and Maths Millionaire. So if you know Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, that's the theme behind that. There are four year levels. You'll notice that there's no level 1 or 2 like there was in the previous one. And that's just because of it was just a decision that we made. We thought that this required the year 1 and 2. Perhaps it was a little bit hard, even if we brought the questions down. So there's 12 multiple choice questions on each quiz. Again, this one might make a good starter, but you'd have to be all over it because it might take a little more time than you think. Up to you, really, judge your class. And they can complete it online. That's why I haven't got a version of that to show you. There are 12 questions for each one. There is a certificate that you can print after each quiz, and you could hand that out if they've answered all of those questions correctly, 12 out of 12. It's a little achievement for them. I think that's really important, that they feel like they've achieved something out of this and that we acknowledge that, because all too often, I don't know what it's like at your school, but I see the sports people called up on stage constantly. I see the arts people called up on stage constantly for all kinds of things. The maths people, perhaps a little bit less so. Give them a little attaboy. It's just a thing of, we are proud of you, and that they know that we are. Survivor Series. So there are 5 different themes for the Survivor Series this year. On Monday, it's focused on the census. Tuesday is artists and get out of the way. Artists and mathematics. There we go. Now I've got it out of the way. Circles, lines, and points. Geometry on Wednesday. Space. So by space, if you want to blame anybody for that one, feel free to blame me. I wrote those ones. There is a focus on going out into the universe and exploring some of those great planets and stars and some of the things like that. But it's also reflects the renaming of the geometry section of the curriculum into space, the refresh. So, and then Maths Magic. So that's like a grab bag, all different topics. Now, this is one that's really good to form the core of your lesson. So these tasks are going to take longer, and they'll probably take, I would say, a good 40 minutes would be what we're aiming for. They're a little more often, there's some open-ended tasks at the end. So it's also suitable for inquiry. There is questions for students at level 1 and 2, and on those sheets we've included a box where they can write their answers into. So that works really well. I would thoroughly recommend printing that out for them, and then that could be pasted into their box. Once they complete each task for the day, they earn a part of a proverb. If they get all 5 parts of the proverb, they can put that together on Friday. So again, it's a little bit of a code breaking thing. It's not difficult, but just gives them something else to do once they've finished all 5. Now, like all of us, we've all got a wide range of abilities in our general classes. Don't be scared to put the resources for the level 1 up and 1 above, so that if you find, as soon as you get going, you get a little group of students, perhaps a student comes to you saying, oh, look, I've got this is far too easy for me, or you notice that they're really struggling at this, you can modify it pretty quickly and give them the level above or the level below to suit. Or you could look at it yourself even before you start, your classes, and just make a decision about whether or not you think that is achievable. It's a tough job being a writer for Mathsweek. We do get feedback every year. Most of it's positive. Sometimes we get feedback saying, look, this resource was too hard for my class. And of course, just keep in mind that we're trying to write for, if our students in year 3 and 4, then we're going to write at level 2. But you may have a class, perhaps they are year 3 or 4, but perhaps they're not working at level 2. They could be working at late level 2, early level 3 as a group, or perhaps they're at the other end of the spectrum and they find that, that sweet spot of the middle of level 2, they find that hard. So don't be scared to just modify it. You might want to take off the part of the sheet that says what level it is at that point. Worried about that. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. So this is level 1 Survivor. It is from this year. We've got the notes for the teachers here, and it says students may use tablets, laptops, and other devices. So it's up to you whether or not you think that you'd like them to do it without that. Just have a look at the resources. It's up to you how you want to group them, if you would like them to work by themselves in a team. They don't have to be in the same team each day. When we write the tasks, we do like to make it so that encourage the writing so that it's suitable for doing in their maths book if they've got one. And this is a task, though, if they printed it, it would work really well and they could glue it in. So they're starting at 0, skip counting in 4s, drawing with their ruler, connecting the lines to the opposing number, and it has to pass through the centre. And you do that until you get back to 0. And then there are some questions, simple as how many sides did your shape have, how many lines did you draw, and what shape did you draw? Now, for this task, it goes all the way through to level 5, and it increases in difficulty. So you might find if you do this that actually this has scaffolded them in nicely, and you might like to try the harder one after that. Obviously it depends on whether or not they're enjoying it, whether or not they are keen to continue. So yeah, just do have those levels above and below at your fingertips. So if you need to get to them quickly and to keep somebody interested or to modify it, then you can do so quickly. Right, basket of maths. So this one's for the year 9 to 11. Or if you're taking perhaps a bit of a dirty word these days, a stream class or a more able year 7 to 8 class, like a lot of schools are still doing, then you might find that you've got a group that might like to give this one a go. So here's the latitude task for this year. And there are some other topics. We've got longitude, square roots, drones and bearings, paradoxes, pastimes and puzzles. I quite like to have a look at that later myself as well. The questions, there's a little bit of an explanation around the concept to start off with, and then some visuals, and it'll go down into the tasks, and you can see for the latitude what that's about. That you're finding points on a map and then either using the latitude to find out what is the point or vice versa. And yeah, there's enough there. Again, this might well form the core of a lesson for that particular session. And if you look at that, again, I would print the follow-up tasks for the next day in case you get with these able students, you get a group or a child that zooms through it and does it fairly quickly. Well, then you'll be able to set up so that they've got something to do. If we jump down to the last task, usually these would be the more difficult ones. It does increase in difficulty as you go through. Okay, and just, well, they've put the notes for the teachers down the end, and I don't know if many of you will be able to lay your hands on these days, a globe or a world map. Certainly, obviously, the digital technology would help with that one. So probably the last part that I wanted to talk about today, once it goes live on the Monday, there's a whole lot of different activities that they can go to the website and do. So the Maths Chaser comes up. So if you've seen the chase on TV, you'll understand that there is, I've put an example from past years, not from this year's here. So they start off with a ladder, and you would need to print that beforehand. And they start at a particular point on the ladder. Now, their starting point is determined by how well they do on the starting quiz, which is here. And suppose they got them all right, then they would start up here. Okay, obviously, the further you start up here, the better, because the chaser is going to start here. Teachers, you get to be the chaser. So you always get the question right because you have the answers. So you can see that, obviously, how many chances they get to make mistakes. The chase ends when you get to here. So after that many questions, I think it's 7. Yes, it is. There's 7 questions down there. And again, that works really well as a lesson starter. and you can track how they're doing across the week. So that's the Maths Chaser. The games that I talked about, yeah, they are interactive. We won't be making any more, and there's no reason why you have to use them these days. You could use some of the other games that you would find online as a lesson starter. It's just something a little bit different that they haven't seen before. They'll only take about 5 minutes. The Super Challenge. So that is the one that is fairly difficult, and if you answer all 4 correctly, then you can get a certificate. So I'll say no more about that. You'll have to have a look at that yourself on Monday. There are a set of questions just for 9 to 11 to encourage financial literacy. So that is questions with a money theme. And I think that the feeling of the writing committee is that it's important to that financial literacy is increasingly important. Our students don't deal with money a lot these days. They deal with cards, and they deal with and they just swipe the card and that's it. So the understanding of how money works and giving change and perhaps budgeting isn't as good as what it might have been when we were younger and having to actually handle money from day to day. Now, obviously, the last one, the Maths Chaser, is pretty popular, so I'd encourage you giving that one a go. If you wanted to start anywhere, start there. And again, I'll just reiterate what I've said all along, which is just pick and choose. There's a lot of resources there. You won't be able to do all of them. Download it. Don't feel bad if you download it and you don't use it. There's no pressure on anyone to use any particular resource, or don't feel like you registered it. Don't feel like because you registered for it you have to do all of these parts. It's not like that. Think of it as a smorgasbord, and if you're full, then you can stop. And even if you're the only teacher in your school doing it, then you're making a difference. You're celebrating maths, and we appreciate your efforts. All right, now, mostly about this until the end of the year. The materials are available for everyone to access. Really helpful to us on the writing committee that when you get the email about the feedback survey, that you just take a little bit of time to fill it out. It's on the basis of that feedback, that we were able to make the improvements. The website this year that we were able to take on board the feedback about, actually, we'd like a little bit of input into these topics. So we've done that. And it's also a way of us knowing how good a job that we're doing. It really is the only way that we know for sure that we are doing well, or what we need to work on to improve. There is, I haven't mentioned it already, but some of the resources do have te reo translations. So if you're in Kura and you would like to use those in your Kura, then please register for NZ Mathsweek and just have a look at which resources we have been able to translate. We are limited by a budget, and that's why not everything has been translated. However, we've set aside a sizable chunk of the money that the ministry gives us for that translation, and it would be great to see more of the immersion schools making use of the resources, which is not to say that they're not, because we know from the registrations that there are some of the kuras that are doing that. But certainly, please do look at those if you are in the immersion schools, and sign on for maths. Now, I mentioned this briefly. This is the last slide, which is good timing from me because it's 10:42. Oh, sorry, 12:42 at your end. Have a look at if you want to implement Mathsweek across your school, start discussing it with SLT heads of department at the late this year or the start of next year. Make sure that you add it to the agenda for team meetings towards the end of term 2, and register teachers It should be as simple as sharing the link. The teachers can register themselves. If you've got a pupil council, they're really great for taking charge of making a focus on maths during Mathsweek. So they could even run lunchtime Canada Math or MathX competitions using past questions. Does need a little bit of pre-planning on someone need to help them to oversee that, but they'll have really good ideas around how they can make that happen. You can tie it into any other maths events that are happening in August, which are like, Mathswell and the actual Canada Math and MathX competitions in those regions. Hit your principal up about having a maths focus on assembly during assembly that week, so that the teachers, if they're giving out certificates that week, that they do have a maths focus. Or if you've printed those certificates from some of the maths activities in Mathsweek, perhaps they could be given out then. The principal's address could be about maths. Twist their arm. They're the principal. They're supposed to lead. And part of that leading is making sure that the students understand that the academic success, particularly in our neck of the woods, and the maths, is valued. And I joke that you don't need to twist their arm for that. They know that. So it's a good chance for them to shine and do what they do best, which is sell it. And then perhaps find a buddy. Find someone that's keen to give it a go with you. It's always easier if you haven't done it before to find someone else to talk to, and then you can bounce some ideas off each other, like, oh, look, I tried this and that worked really well with my class. You should give it a go. Or, oh, I tried this and actually I found it really hard and I don't understand where it went wrong. Did I miss something? And then you've got someone to talk to. Take some photos as you're going along. Put the winners into your newsletters and write a little blurb. It's all about promoting it. Make maths fun, but also honour the effort that our kids put into that, and they will love you for it, and so will we. All right, and that's me, I think. Does anybody have any last minute questions or anything that they would like to throw at me?
Yeah, kia ora, Shane. There is a question. What time are the resources available to teachers each day?
Okay, so the resources at the moment, I'll jump to the website. Hang on, if I flip back to here, right at the start, I think it was. All right, so, and I'll actually just log in and I'll show you what you can see now for teachers. And teacher login. So this is what's currently there at the moment. All of the basket of math stuff, the Survivor series and the Daily Dollar, is able to be downloaded now. Now on Monday, and in terms of time, I believe that it's about 7 o'clock. I might be wrong. It could even be Sunday night, but please don't quote me on that because I don't know for sure. If it isn't available before you start teaching on Monday, I'd be disappointed because it's not of much use then. You need time to prepare. So, sorry, I can't give you a better answer than that.
No, that's fine. We've got early bird teachers that meet at 7:45, so it's good for them to just print it off and have a look. But I'm sure they'll make it work, and I'm sure you'll make it work your end. But that looks fantastic, Shane. The team's done a great job, and I think that feedback cycle and continual improvement. It looks like you've really taken into account that chaser. I love the chaser. I'd be really keen to do that.
I recommended that. Sorry, and I've used that with my class as well, and they do love it.
Yeah. We all love a good chase. It's fantastic. I think you guys have done a really great job. It looks like the writing team. A big paki to you guys. Lots of excited teachers on here. Looking forward to using these resources, and certainly, it's resources are treasures, aren't they? I love that one with the circle and the divisions and drawing the lines. It reminded me of those boards that you used to wrap the cotton around the pins, and you can see
yes, I know the ones. Yeah,
fantastic, great work. And I think you're right to remind us all that if not us, then who? And this is our week to shine, and the whole school needs to know about it. And if we can make some posters or a banner that says, yay, it's Mathsweek, or I don't know, get it out there. It's fantastic work, and this is really great support that we need to do to help us do that. So thanks so much for all of that.